The biggest reason people stay poor has nothing to do with the economy. It's not inflation, it's not the job market, it's not that they didn't get the right opportunities, and it's definitely not that they didn't work hard enough. Because there are millions of incredibly hardworking people who are completely broke, working 2 jobs, doing everything they were told to do, and still ending up with nothing at the end of the month. And the reason nobody wants to say this out loud is because it's uncomfortable, because it implies that the problem might not be external, that it might be something closer to home, something that shows up every day in the small decisions most people never even think about. Because here's what the data actually shows. According to Bank of America's 2025 consumer research, 24% of American households, 1 in 4, are living paycheck to paycheck, spending over 95% of their income on just the basics, nothing left, no savings, no buffer, no margin for error. And here's the part that should stop you cold. That number includes people earning 6 figures. So if income alone fixed this problem, it would already be fixed. It isn't, which means something else is going on, and that something else is what we're talking about today. Let's start with the habit nobody admits to: spending money to feel better. Meet Marcus. Marcus makes $55,000 a year. Decent income. Not rich, but not struggling on paper. But Marcus has a pattern. Every time he has a bad week at work, he buys something. New shoes, a gadget, a night out with friends he can't really afford, not because he planned to, but because spending feels like relief. It feels like control in a moment where everything else feels out of control. Psychologists call this retail therapy, and it is one of the most financially destructive habits in existence, not because the individual purchases are catastrophic, but because they are constant. And they are invisible, because nobody budgets for the emotional spending. It doesn't show up in any plan. It just quietly drains the account, every month, without fail. And Marcus never gets ahead, not because he doesn't earn enough, but because every surplus he creates gets silently consumed by the habit he never acknowledged he had. The first habit that keeps people poor is spending money emotionally instead of intentionally. The second habit is even more insidious, and it lives in your wallet right now. Credit card debt in America hit a record $1.13 trillion in 2025, according to Federal Reserve data. That is not a typo. $1.13 trillion. And the average credit card interest rate is sitting at around 23%. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because most people who carry credit card debt are not irresponsible. They're not reckless. They're just playing a game they were never taught the rules of. The credit card industry is one of the most brilliantly designed financial traps in history. And here's how it works. You get a card. You spend. The bill comes. You pay the minimum because it's small and manageable, and the bank makes it feel fine. And then 23% interest starts compounding on the remaining balance. Month after month, year after year. A $2,000 credit card balance paid at minimum payments only takes over a decade to eliminate. And by the time it's gone, you've paid more in interest than you borrowed in the first place. You literally bought the same thing twice. The habit isn't using a credit card. The habit is carrying a balance and treating minimum payments like a solution. That is the trap. And tens of millions of people are in it right now without fully realizing how deep it goes. But here's where the real money is being lost. And it's not where most people look. The third habit is the most expensive one. And it has nothing to do with what you spend. It has everything to do with what you don't do with what's left. According to Federal Reserve data, the wealthiest 10% of Americans invest approximately 15% of their income, consistently, regardless of market conditions. Regardless of what's happening in the news, they just keep investing. And everyone else? Nearly 78% of American workers report living paycheck to paycheck at some level. No investing, no compounding, no assets working in the background. And this is the gap that nobody talks about honestly, because the difference between someone who builds wealth and someone who doesn't is almost never income. It's whether their money is sitting still or whether it's working. $1,000 sitting in a standard bank account, earning 0.39%, the national average. as of 2026, earns you $3.90 in a year. $3.90. That same $1,000 invested in a low-cost index fund averaging 7% annually becomes nearly $8,000 over 30 years, without you doing anything additional. The habit of not investing, of waiting until things feel more stable, until you earn a little more, until the market looks less scary, is one of the most expensive decisions a person can make. Because what they're really doing is paying an invisible tax on their future. Every month they wait is a month compound interest works for someone else instead of them. And then there's the fourth habit, the one that feels the most like a personal attack to say out loud: paying for a lifestyle you haven't earned yet. This one is cultural. It's driven by social media, by comparison, by the deeply human instinct to appear successful before actually becoming successful. New car on a car payment that eats 20% of your take-home pay. An apartment that stretches the budget every month because the nicer building felt worth it. Subscriptions, clothes, dinners, vacations, all purchased on the logic that you'll figure it out later. And here's what's interesting. This habit doesn't feel like a habit. It feels like living. It feels like deserving. It feels like finally having the things everyone else seems to have. But what it actually is, financially speaking, is lifestyle inflation. And lifestyle inflation is the reason people get raises and somehow still feel broke 3 months later. Because the spending expanded to match the income before the income ever had a chance to build anything, consumer prices in America rose 24.6% between August 2020 and August 2025, according to data cited by Newsweek. Wages for lower and middle-income earners did not keep pace, and yet spending kept climbing, because the culture of spending doesn't wait for wages to catch up. The wealthy don't do this, not because they don't enjoy things, but because they learned early that the appearance of wealth and the building of wealth are two completely opposite directions. Here's the one nobody wants to hear. The fifth habit. And it's the most silent killer of all. Not having a financial plan and calling it freedom. Most people have no idea what their actual monthly expenses are. They have a rough feeling, a vague estimate. They check their account balance occasionally and use that as their financial compass. When the number looks okay, they feel okay. When it looks low, they feel stressed. And then they go back to not looking. This is not a judgment, it's a pattern. And it exists because personal finance was never taught in school. 2/3 of students say their school did not adequately educate them about personal finance, according to WalletHub's 2026 financial literacy data. So people enter adulthood making decisions about money with almost no framework for doing it well. And the absence of a plan is itself a plan. It's just a plan to stay exactly where you are. The people who escape the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle almost universally share one thing. At some point they sat down and got honest about the numbers. Not a vague estimate, the actual numbers. What comes in? What goes out? What's left? And then they built a system around that reality, instead of pretending it would sort itself out eventually. So here's the thing nobody says at the end of these conversations. These habits are not character flaws. They're not signs of weakness or stupidity or laziness. They are the natural output of a system that never taught people how money actually works. A school system that covered quadratic equations but not compound interest. A culture that sells the appearance of success while hiding the mechanics of it. The people stuck in these habits aren't failing. They're just playing a game with rules they were never given. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Knowing the rules now and still not changing anything, that part is a choice. Because the research is clear. The habits that keep people poor are not inevitable. They're not genetic. They're not destiny. They are patterns. And patterns can be replaced. Not all at once, not in a month, but one decision at a time, one habit swapped for a better one, and then compounded over years into a financial life that looks nothing like the one you started with. And that's exactly why traditional financial media won't make this video, because it doesn't blame the economy. It doesn't blame the banks. It doesn't give you someone to point at. It just gives you a mirror. And mirrors don't get clicks, but they do change lives. Hit subscribe if you want to keep seeing the conversations that actually matter.